Welcome everybody to the Type Thursday book Club. I'm so excited to have you guys all here for our final book of season 1. Can't believe it. It's been 15 books, 15 weeks together with Michael Mondragon and Matheo from Type Thursday Los Angeles, and it's super exciting to have you all here for this week's review. So remember, this, as we said, this is your founder, Thomas Jockin. I'm here with Matheo. Matheo, how are we doing today?
I'm doing amazing. Our 15th episode. I'm excited.
Very excited. And Michael, how are we doing over from Type Thursday Phoenix?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Okay. So Type Thursday is a meeting place for people who love fonts and type. We have meetups at physical locations. We have one coming up next week in Type Thursday LA. When we're not in social meetups where people share progress on projects and get feedback from the community, we're here at the Type Thursday Book Club. So this week we are reading Typography, the Typography Idea Book. And I think I'm looking forward to this book, especially as a nice way to close up season 1. So the way we do our books, for those who may not know, we do this based on 5 criteria of rating that we privately reviewed the book. And we're coming together now to reveal publicly our ratings of it. And those are according to 5 criteria: clarity of concepts, visual inspiration, practical application, typographic insight, and overall impact. I think this might be a very fun episode. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Matheo and Michael's reviews were this week, if not my own. So with that said, shall we move on over to our Fig Jam board one last time?
Right. Who's first?
Oh yeah, we didn't declare times. I'll volunteer to go first. I'll just go old school. I'll go first, Matheo will go second, and Michael will go third. So
I think that's appropriate, Thomas. You're a typography mastermind here.
In there. Well, it's kind of the area I love the most. What can I say? Okay, so clarity of concept. I was a little mixed on this one personally, because there's a difference between the way this book is structured. It's basically a history book. It's a history of typographic practice based on concepts that are, quite frankly, kind of like there are thematic overlaps in the book, but it's very much a thematic idea, a discussion about it, and somewhat how it's applied, and then a work example. But it's certainly not systematic in a way that probably the beginning designers would really need. But for more advanced designers or educators, it's really useful. I found it very inspirational. So I think in a way how I played this out was I put clarity of concepts because of its nature of a kind of thematic ideas, and then representing them visually. But the articulations were, you basically already had to be a designer to understand what's being said, but they were useful. I think for me, I gave it a 3 for those reasons.
Thomas, does that pass it to me?
I'm passing to you, yes.
Excellent. Let me see. Alrighty, fam. So in clarity of concepts, I was also very mixed on this one as well. And I ultimately was like, wait, do I say 5? But then I was like, I don't know if I can say 5, because they're not going in depth. The authors did not go into deep discussion to break down what these concepts are. They're just kind of like, great work, awesome work, inspiring. Let's get inspired together and then move on to the next one. So it's very short and concise. But what I wanted to say is like that short and conciseness helps the ideas be conveyed clearly. And I'm totally on board with you, Thomas, to say if you are a beginner and you don't have a lot of graphic design experience, these concepts might not feel like they're explained very clearly. But because I have years of graphic design experience behind my belt, I felt like these concepts were very clear, concise, short, and to the point, which is why I landed on a solid 4 for the way that this book is constructed.
Michael's up.
Right. So I'm landing exactly at a 4 as well. And one thing that for me is, so I've been doing a lot of, I will say I'm now a typography evangelist. when I'm speaking to students or really anyone who kind of really doesn't know about typography, I feel like it's a superpower. I feel like it's a design element that hasn't been really fairly not criticized, but really promoted. And the things that I love in design are all typography based. And so I'm a big Steven Heller fan. I read a lot of his, things that he puts out. I think I'm on his mailing list as well. And I would not have considered this book before, but for my typographic inspiration, I definitely have to put it definitely high. It's definitely inspiring. A lot of I again one of the this is one of the books that I would have wished that I would have seen in my 20s. And again, it got me excited about typography. So I think that it definitely demonstrates typography as expression, and I might not have seen that before. And so, like for that, I give it a 4 out of 5. Um, could it have been? There's still room for improvement, but I still think it's very strong.
Yeah. I think comes down to like, obviously I think I kind of tipped my hand where I'm going to go with visual inspiration on this. But like, you know what it is? It's the kind of thing, it's the kind of book I would give my typography to students who got a foundation in type. And now we're talking seriously about how do we use type? How do we express with type? Right? Those kind of expressive, thinking about type outside the normal bounds of typesetting, right? They kind of bring Herstian, right? Or even a lettering kind of consideration. Lettering gets you closer to it, but this is very particular. It's a very graphic design reference because we're not drawing sometimes there is rendering of letters, like there are some calligraphic or type design referencing. L.A. Pulse is actually his work is being mentioned in it. And that blew me right back to 2010s, baby. That was a 2010s energy right there. It was great. But with that said, I do think it's a great support book for people who already got your feet wet in type, and just need to kind of see, I didn't even think that was possible. Like that's really where I find this. But in terms of explaining those concepts, or more importantly, like, you know what it is? I feel like a student would see this and then want to just reproduce, right? Imitate what they saw. They wouldn't understand the concept behind it or the way to expand on that in a unique way in their voice. But it's an initial touching point to have them start thinking about the possibility. Very good. So that's why I was very mixed in terms of it gets you clarity of like even understanding what an example is. But because there's only one example, the tendency of students is to just copy that exact copy or don't deviate very far from it. So that's kind of I find it's one Achilles heel is that issue.
This is very well said, Thomas, and I totally agree with Michael as well. I was like, I wish I found this book sooner. Being in my 30s, I kind of feel like I also found it at the perfect time, because maybe if I found it when I was too new in the industry, I wouldn't have understood it as well. And so I think I kind of found it at the perfect time, which is later, and it's given me also later in my career feeling uninspired. I feel very uninspired by all the AI crap that we keep seeing and all the sort of sameness of the designs we keep seeing even before AI. There was just a lot of homogeny of like the sameness. So to see this book and to see the authors be able to kind of create a beautiful repertoire of visual inspiration, I felt like this was just the perfect timing to just get me inspired when I needed it the most.
Yeah, like I flipped through this book, and again, I love these types of books. So it's like it was kind of easy to understand what it was trying to convey. But then again, I'm a fan. I'm very into this, and so if somebody was coming from a background that they didn't know what they were looking at, so what was it? So did it make that connection? And I think that, again, if I'm standing behind someone telling them why this is so awesome, that'd be different. But if they were going to get that, I think they probably have to do a little bit more searching. And also, you're right. I think you're right on, Thomas. The second year is a perfect example of Like, this isn't an entry level book. It's definitely second year for sure.
Very good. Shall we proceed?
Let's do it.
Let's
Okay.
go.
Be on camera. Yep. So very straight. I mean, this in terms of, I was kind of tipping my hand with my review of the clarity of a concept, and to say this is visual. You cannot ask for better visual inspiration in type. So I like this for two reasons. One is it's almost like you get Megs, but with a contemporary work that wasn't just kind of bootstrapped it on at the end, because the later editions of the Megs, History of Graphic Design, they do add on contemporary work, but it has none of the thematic orientation. It's totally just like, oh yeah, and a bunch of stuff happened. So let's just dumping this in. And always remember Megs' conclude, like, it's not him. I know it's the other guy. He is another author now who is continuing that book. And as much as I'm hating on that book, I just say that because the conclusion chapter, I remember this from Megs. I think it was 6th edition I read recently. Basically, it's like, yeah, computer, like internet, AI, like computer stuff's happening, whatever's going to happen. Like it has such a lack of clarity of thematic idea compared to what Megs was doing in his original work, right? From the historical period to all the way to basically 1970s, I would say. This book, first of all, covers a much more rigorous orientation of the 70s on, I would say, but really interesting mixes sometimes of 1800s, 1920s. So you're getting this really rich historical lens that I find is very refreshing. It's much broader and much more contemporary. And it puts those contemporary 2010, 2008. I think the latest, I think it was a 2014 I saw, but so relatively contemporary, like getting in there, mixed with these historical samples that you would have to go to Megs to see it. I thought that was really powerful. And the language, this orientation of presenting themes with the designs and talking through those themes and some historical context about it and some practical guidance about it, those idea of those applications. I think this is great visual inspiration. I think for those who are already in the game for a long time and need something a little fresh to reconsider possibilities, this book is perfect for you. Even when I caution that if a student saw this too early, they would just imitate what they saw. But you know what? That's how you get started. So in this category, that's perfectly acceptable. I think that's a good outcome. If a student feels like this is really cool, I want to make that, I want to try that in my design assignment, that's visual inspiration achieved, in my opinion, very well. So for those reasons, it gets a super strong 5 in visual inspiration.
Nice. Very well said. And I'm a fanboy. I'm going to say it right now. So there's no holding out on this one. I'm a solid 5. Steven Heller and Gail Anderson did an amazing, fantastic job of visual inspiration. And they referenced Joseph Mueller-Brockman's poster design work here in this awesome Wiener Lar 1960s. And it's timeless. It's classic. You see that and you're just like, oh, so simple, but so well done, you know? And for someone who uses the grid all the time, he just like, boom, just slaps across it and just goes at this angle and it just perfectly aligns with everything. So I think this book is one of the best in visual inspiration that we've seen throughout the entire season. So in the industry, this is one of the best visual inspiration books in graphic design and typography use that you're going to find. And I also like, to Thomas's point, it's going more contemporary, more modern than where Megs takes you, which, just kind of like modern is just thrown in and tacked on at the end, but it takes you through a lot of historical stuff. It's very well put together. These authors did a fantastic job. So high scores on visual inspiration and fanboying out here.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm not disputing anything. I'm going to put myself right here. I'll go a little bit below you so you can still see you. This is definitely a 5 for me. There's numerous examples of type being transformed into image, pattern, texture, but also storytelling. And I think that that's also something that I think that is kind of underrated here. And it's something that I did not understand, when I was a younger designer. And so I was also very impressed. And in fact, even what you showed, Matteo, was the way that type interacts with photography, which is something that's kind of really abstract, and it will be very hard to show great examples of that. And you showed a great one right there. And so I think that the creative references that are in this book are very inspirational. But it's also what you said, Thomas. It's something that I teach my students now, and I'm very into this, and this is the way that I came up. What I was doing, what my style is basically me making the stuff that I used to love. So, old baseball logos, or, that's how I became a branding. I won't say an expert, I'll say a branding person. I have a long history of it, but also I'm inspired by branding. So like I would look at soccer logos, I would look at, UFC logos and different t-shirt logos. And basically became me creating that style, but also in trying to imitate something, it became my own because I put my own spins on it and my own nuances to it. So obviously this is a book that can visually inspire you to create bigger and better things.
I mean, who knows? We'll find out this and see in our recap episode. This is the best visual inspiration book of the season. I have a feeling it is. I don't recall us being unanimous in a 5-star rating in visual inspiration. Maybe House Industries lettering manual. Maybe that. That's the only thing I can think of that comes even closest to kind of enthusiasm to agree that this book is like, if you're in type and you want that visual spike, you just need that hit. You just need that little wake up call, little bang of type love. This book is for you. I think that's definitely, a very reasonable and fair point. As everyone is saying.
It's especially coming from reading Robert Bringhurst's the elements of typographic style. If you're like getting hit by walls of text and you're just like, my brain needs a break, which is where I was when I first read that book. I was like, oh my God, my brain's going numb. I just want to see visuals. This book is a great compliment to read along or give yourself a break because it's so visually put together and so short in the text, right? So it's just wonderful inspiration, wonderful hit after hit after hit of good graphic design examples and typographic visual explorations. Michael, I will call you a branding expert because I have had many conversations, and in the years that I have known you, you are a branding expert. So yes, and I love that you said, the way you approach getting into design is recreating those things that inspired you as a kid, because that makes sense. Like now that I've known you as a professional, I was like, oh yeah, I can see that in your style because you were inspired by the Mad TV magazine, you're inspired by Thrasher magazine, you're inspired by baseball and beer brands. And like when I see you make something, I'm like, yeah, that looks like something from that era, or inspired by those worlds. So yeah, I think this is awesome. Absolutely awesome book for type nerds. And
by the way, Andrea's comment in the chat was imitation is a form of flattery is very accurate, I feel. And yes, we need typography. Yeah, imitation is a form of flattery. That's very common. Everyone here, I'm sure everyone can share stories of like, you see work that really inspires you. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to copy it or do something very closely derivative of it. That's just a very common practice in training. So it's perfectly natural. I don't think there's anything wrong with that in terms of your learning educational process. Which this book absolutely would. I'm sure there's some, like, that's the thing. I'm sure there's at least one sample here. You go, that's really cool. And actually, I think a big part of design education is, especially in type, is you got to get that database, man. You got to get that database of like a wide exposure and you just hold things in memory, and then something reminds you of this, and then you pull it back in 5 years. Like works like one of the editions I really remember was typeface, where it was just letter A just rotated. So it was like an eyeball, like it was just the eye from a side view. And the designer illustrated just barely the contour of the face, the side of it, enough so that you saw a person. And the way it was cropped and arranged, and that contrast play of the rendering of the line of the face with the A rotated on its side. I don't know which page, I forgot which. Yep, that's the one. So smart.
Look at that. It's gorgeous.
Yep.
Yep.
So smart.
So simple, but so intelligent. Yeah.
Yeah. As an example, like, see, as my points, like, you got to have that memory. You got to hold on to, like, oh, what's that word? So even just like, and you know, the text gives you some note about that, the commentary. But for me, what I'm looking there is that contrast of the line contour, contrast to the kind of like that kind of grotesque sans serif art, contrast modulation that's very rigid and angular. Like, I'm seeing all those relationships play out, and even the position of the face. Notice it's to the right. So that's what's really useful about this book is that, see, I can give, as an educator, I can give a whole bunch of on the fly commentary in addition to what the authors used. So I think for educators, if you're going, how do I help my students get inspired by a type and like see what's really cool about this? Like, this is just great things, because now I can look at this, pull this book up, get the images of it, and then have the class talk through what makes this interesting.
Yep.
Because part of your job responsibility as educators to help draw out what's so interesting about this work, like help people get it, like what's so interesting about it.
Yep.
Contour, form, arrangement, emphasis, position, scale, like all those things. You know, that's what makes great design happen.
How about the chairs that made an alphabet?
Oh, that was really cool too. I remember that.
I mean, that is something that I would show my students and think to myself, like, what makes this so cool? Why is this mind blowing? Because there we go. Yeah. I mean, that is
insane.
Tremendous.
And you like zoom in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just nuts. Yeah. The whole alphabet.
Yeah.
Chairs.
that is visual inspiration on a page.
Yeah. And Robert Bringhurst would write you 10 pages about it, and then, you know, Steven Heller and Gail Anderson just show you a picture and give you one paragraph about it.
Yeah. That's great stuff. And that's the kind of reference that as a professional, like, you're going, I remember this thing, and it was like that. It was like furniture, or it's like these letter forms, but it's like it made an alphabet. So like, those are the type of things that I think that it's to be inspired and to be a better designer, you have to have these kind of recall of things that you see and how you can implement them.
Yeah.
Right. So how are we going to apply it?
And how we're going to apply it. So, which is actually what I think what Michael just kind of hinted at. I think its practical application as an object of inspiration, it's super good. So even though the text itself gives a lot of good supporting commentary and discussion about it, I do think the general, it's a little, as we discussed, it's a little light on the touch, but the images themselves are so strong, and the thematic orientation. And I think actually very honest, I actually, you know, my commentary thought is, I think this is a very important teaching tool, because the idea is also not just going through once reading it, then asking things like, what themes or approaches were similar? Like, how does things like using crayon, using collage, basically materiality, right? How is material being used? How is type as object being used? Like, these are like meta themes. So then you start building the network of relationships in your head about these design practices that are kind of basically very on the fly thought. And then you have to then you kind of hold that together when you go work on your client projects or your briefs, for example. So I think in terms of real long-term value of this is the kind of book you should keep in your bookshelf. And whenever you're starting a new project, you're kind of like, I need some inspiration. You pull this book out and you're just gathering ideas in your head. And then you kind of start exploring your briefs based on it. So for those reasons, I think it's incredibly practical. So I'm actually going to put this very strongly in the practical application side. I'm giving it a 5 in that case.
Solid 5. Whoa. I feel like we don't see Thomas throw solid 5s.
I know. I'm usually the resident hater.
Resident hater, typographer and resident hater all in one. So for me, I was thinking I was going to be a 5, but then when I got to the end of this book, I kind of was like, there is not a lot of practical application, step-by-step guidance. Here's how we made these things. Here's how these things were constructed. And all throughout the book, I kind of felt myself asking, like, this is great and this work is amazing, but I'd like to see the process of, or at least a little bit of like, how did they go about making this stuff? And they kind of gave an example of like talking about one, but it just wasn't enough. So I was going to rate it really high, but then as I got to the end of the book, I was like, oh, I feel like, practical application's missing. So I landed on a solid 4. I was going to be a 3, but then I was like, you know what? In using this for teaching specifically and like practice for visual inspiration, this is extremely useful. You're going to get inspired. You're going to get those hits. You're going to get ideas. Like Thomas said, you're going to build out your neural network of design relationships of how you can then apply this into your work by looking at great examples of modern typography. But are you going to get told how to do it? No. So it's like you have to also be at the later stage of your career or learning, I think, to be able to then go apply this. So you can't just pick up this book as a beginner and be like, I'm ready to go. Like, it's great, but like you're going to need other things too. So yeah, that's how I landed at a 4.
Okay. So I am also at a 4
Nope.
for similar reasons. And I think that the sections demonstrating like hierarchy and through scale and contrast are amazing. And so if a designer is working like on a poster or packaging, album covers, anything, I mean, these are really practical and definitely gives you a lot of good ideas that, I mean, when I look at certain things online, I'm like, oh, wow, that's really cool, super cool and interesting. And these can apply to those. And I think that it can inspire you to kind of push the limits. The probably the one thing that it might encourage is style chasing. So it doesn't teach designers kind of like a repeatable process. So like, for instance, if you do a really cool campaign, it's going to be difficult because all these different campaigns are different. So how do you take like that inspiration and kind of apply it differently to another project? So I think the practical application is there, but I think that if we encourage like, good practice and, like Matteo was saying, these other types of things that can encourage like, being curious, being more inspirational in what you're using and bring really kind of maybe go a little bit deeper into it. I think that might have been a way of giving it a 5. But yeah, 4 out of 5 for me. I think that's strong.
This is partly why I marked it so hard negatively in clarity of concepts, because what Michael just said, the style chasing kind of, that's the great danger of this book, is that it's very prone for that danger. You need to be mature to understand that you have to ask the how and the why. You need both those. Like you go, this is cool, yes, but then you need more maturity in your design practice or in a supporting relationship, like in terms of education or a space, professor, whatever, instructor, investigating the how and the why. Now, there are supporting readings, like they tell you go more readings in the back. So the authors were aware that this is not going to be exhaustive of your typographic education. But I am sympathetic to this because it does not answer both the why and the how in a system way. But for me, my opinion is, let's assume you already have that knowledge or you have enough maturity, you can go and find that out on your own. I think having that access of a book you can pull up and just blow through in 20, 30 minutes, go through the whole thing, and then go, okay, I'm really interested in these typist chair. Because actually I'm thinking immediately when I saw that, when you brought it up, Michael, I immediately thought of the Arabic ones. There was an Arabic typist, an Arabic designer, graphic designer who did chairs in Arabic, for example. So now you're thinking about the association of different script systems of chairs, for example. So I think that's an example where this, just having this book as a quick resource, is very practically useful for mature designers. But these are the dangers if you're just going in first, jumping in very early in your career. That's the danger, is that it will likely become a style chasing book, and that's not the best use of this tool.
Yeah. I agree with you guys on this one. I'm on the same page. I think that's going to cause people to chase down the style. And that chair one stood out to me really strongly, but and like so many others too. but I'm like, then I also want to see, take me into more and take me into more practical application of like, how did they get there? How did they land on this process? Thomas, I like that you point out the authors sort of knew. It's like, okay, well, here's a list of references that you can use to get there. And I was trying to look for another one, but I can't seem to find it now already. But yeah, I just would have liked to see more explanation and depth into here's the application that went on behind it, kind of like the one when they talk about enemy and noir. Here it is. Boom. So shadow turning the light. And this is
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Fantastic example that is visually inspiring. And when you look at this, you might think like, oh, it's made in Photoshop. No. And this is what they tell you. Stephen Doyle made this in 2004. And that he made this letters and this whole shot, and this whole scene out of physical type, and then lighting, and photography. So it's like what you could have done it rendered in Photoshop, he did here by hand, New York designer Stephen Doyle, and brought out the sort of classic noir film style. So that to me was more of that going behind the scenes and talking about the practical application. I wish there was basically more of that for these other great examples that were in here to sort of score this higher. But the way that it's kind of like, this is nice, and this is nice, and this is nice, and this is wonderful for the most of the entire book, and doesn't ever touch on how any of it was made. I was like, okay, I gotta score this low a little bit more. But I am fanboying out on this. This might be one of the best we've read yet, I think.
Yeah, I think that even like the furniture one we were just talking about, even that one, it's like they're really good for that, but it's like, how do you push that further? So it's like, I think that that's the one thing that'll challenge you, but it doesn't tell you how to do it. I think you have to come up with it, because that's what great artists do. They take those types of concepts and really make them more, and take that and run.
So, all right, let's roll. Oh, typography inside. Okay. So, and that's the rub here, right? So here's the issue. So in terms of inspiration, off the charts. And I think, and under the way I understand this book, I think it's incredibly practical. Now, the insight, it's where it's difficult, because it doesn't really address the how and the why. And even when they did, it does give you how, like Matheo pointed out with the enemy poster project from Doyle. It's not explaining you how he shot it in physical lighting and how he got the shadows to do that. You see, that's not the purpose of this text, to give you any of that. As opposed to, so typically when we think typographic insight, it's articulating aspects of type that you would not know beforehand, like how or the why or aspects like that. So for example, The Stroke by Eric Nordzai, that's typographic insight off the charts, because that's giving you a whole new way of seeing type. You didn't even know it was there beforehand. So this is all to say, while I think it's an amazing visual inspiration, I think it's incredibly practical, but because of that, it kind of, I see this in relation to the clarity of concept problem, that for those reasons, I think it gets a 3 for those reasons. It's not that because its thematic presentations are not useful. It is, and it's very visually inspiring, and you'll get a lot of insight from it and general visual inspiration. But on the type side, I think there are some tensions here because of the way they handled this more thematic approach and not going, and just the structure of it. They can't go into the how and the why with any significant detail because of the structure of the book. So that's my take.
Ooh, that's hard. you rated it hard. For me, on typographic insight, I really felt like this book did a wonderful job. And I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna fight you, Thomas. I'm ranking this one at a solid 5. Steven Heller and Gail Anderson, I think, did a fantastic job giving us typographic thinking through showing. So it was like, show us, don't tell us. And one of my favorites from the whole book was this beauty right here, where it's like, show us, don't tell us. And it's this poster that was designed, that's the ampersand, but as a spider web and in a poster format, designed by Sasha Haas in 2013. Das Spinnerets, the spider's web. And it's just kind of like playing on the idea of vectorization of type and all these little lines that make up all the typography. Is also for typographic insight too, to have kind of crossed over hand lettering examples. So we got hand lettering examples. We got calligraphy examples in there. Oh, sorry, calligraphy examples, as well as the typographic approaches of posters that were excellently done. I felt like where Robert Bringhurst did a ton of paragraphs of written text to explain and drag on and on and on about all these points that he had to make. What they did in this book is they took us through typographic insight in ways that were visual, with all of these wonderful posters that they share with us to help us understand sort of what we've been reading about all this time, studying as an early graphic design career, reading, learning about all these different things. The other thing that I loved about this book was the cover design and the typographic insight of the, like, there's an impression, there's a blind emboss going on here. I think you can kind of see the blind emboss at certain angles with the camera. And
Deboss.
the other deboss. The other piece that I loved about this is the paragraph text is really smooth and even read, and like nice even color on the page. The rag right is very even and calmly made. The baseline that everything sits on, the letter spacing, the leading, I just felt like this was such an easy read. The measure, the line paragraph width was perfectly set. So compared to How to Be a Graphic Designer Without Losing Your Soul, where it's like those lines read forever and that book took forever, that's so hard to read. This read so quickly and used typographic insight to do all that. So for me, I'm rating it a 5 for all those reasons.
All right. I love it. So Thomas's, I actually had Thomas in my head for this one. And I think it's a good thing because I might have cited a little bit differently before this. And you were saying before, Thomas, about the 5s across the board. If I did not rate the House Industries books a 5, I did something wrong. I love all that. But for this one, I am right with you with a 3 out of 5. And it's because it doesn't spend a lot of time talking about spacing, rhythm, structure, historical context, letter form construction. I feel like this is like walking through like an art gallery of like really great work. But it doesn't spend the time. It spends a little bit of time talking about these different things. But as far as good insight into the expression or typographical theory, this is not the book. Bringhurst, Lupton, excuse me. I think those books are deep dives into this. So you're right. It doesn't go into it, but the examples that you showed me just now, Matheo, I said I love them just because I can literally see with my experience why those are so great. Whether it went into depth about that, it wasn't really apparent to me. So I'm going to put it right in the middle, only thinking that there's room for improvement there.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair, Matheo also makes sense. Typographic insight, I bet over time in this group has cultivated to mean also how the book is typeset and presented. That is fair. That's not an official definition, but it is typographic thinking because it's showing you the thinking of the type by presentation. That is persuasive. I think that is persuasive in the sense that, and exactly against how to be a graphic designer without losing your soul. Because yeah, that book was a real slog. Now it was a lot more text, but the setting was really rough. This book was an absolute breeze. It had really great sensitivity to margin, to pacing, to sequence, to arrangement of the asset, to the text, the indentation, the system of bolding. These are all great details. So those are I think that's actually very fair. I still stand by my point that actually, I think what Michael said actually doubles down on that last point. If you're already experienced in type, this book is fantastic. You can inject your knowledge of the how and why, like the spider one, right? Really great. But why? But why is that? Because it's not vector. It's vector in a sense of understanding line points and how they arrange. So the composing elements out of straight lines. Like that's the logic it's trying to show you, but not just arbitrarily so, but to communicate an idea. In this case, the spider net, right? So that's all the stuff a more mature designer will then connect. They'll add in those insights. Like you're getting the insight because you're experienced. So that's why it's so useful. But if you're a beginner, you don't have that insight. You're going to have to go get that elsewhere or rely on your educator to support you by explaining all this to you, so, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But for like the book itself, that's why I held so hard. I don't disagree with your argument that it is demonstrating, and those demonstrations are very powerful. I think those are fair points.
Oh man, thank you guys. I love nerding out with you guys over this kind of stuff, and that I dropped the typesetting bomb of the book itself because it's so beautifully designed and typeset, this book, that you guys, we didn't even talk about it until I brought it up right now, until almost the very end, because the best design is hidden in plain sight. It's like when you don't notice it. And why did we not notice it? Because as we were reading the book, it was a joy, it was a pleasure, because of the measure of the paragraphs, this leading of those lines, the spacing, in the margins, all these things that kind of, I was like, oh, this is so well done. But Thomas, to your point, if I was a junior designer, didn't know this stuff, didn't have the years of experience, didn't have a mentor, I would have no clue to even be able to pull those insights out of this book. But because I do have the contextual experience, I can start to see that and connect those dots. So yeah, this is definitely not a book that you're going to pick up right at the beginning or early stages of your career. You have to have a solid foundation to pull the typographic insights out, I think. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, even that example that you showed, the baseline on 2 lines, like that shouldn't work. And any boss or any creative director would have come down like a ton of bricks on me if I were to present that. But it's brilliant. It's absolutely awesome. And it reads, even though it's upside down. The bottom line is upside down and it's flipped. It should not work. And I think that's one of the brilliant parts of it, that you can actually break this system. But again, it's like, why does that work? I think that's a bigger discussion.
Yeah. And that's the point too. And that's the thing, a professional designer can really talk that through, combination of the type choice, the fact that it's a wood type, that condensed width, I think is a huge factor. And the fact that, quite frankly, like resting the baseline against it helps, like kind of sell the idea. And it's broken like at that fillable line, like baseline, right?
Yep.
And it kind of emphasizes the idea of it. So I think just speculations about it.
Yeah. And it looks like a reflection too. It's like four letters.
Yes.
It does look like a reflection. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, are they mono width? Are they the same widths?
They looked mono width, or just condensed. But
typically condensed typeface is usually regularizer widths usually.
Yeah.
So that's fair.
It was still thick though.
Oh, he overlaps it too. That's how I was able to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some overlapping, but that's a nice. I love the fine line between the two, the baseline and there's just a fine line.
I think color has a lot to do with this as well,
and color too. Yeah, the fact he's alternating the color,
and the E's are red.
Yep.
Oh,
yeah. That kind of keeps that consistency. The first letters are blue. The second letter is that kind of.
Yeah, he's repeating the pattern.
Yeah, so the pattern.
Exactly. They ease the connection, and they because it's baseline. But actually, that's the thing. Line E is actually the end line, right? But because the way they're even rotated, your eye moves across and understands it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's incredible. Very well done. Yeah,
love it.
And like a reflection, Michael. I like that you pointed that out. It looks like a reflection in the water.
Well, these are all the things that you'd have to say to justify your design.
Oh God! And then this one I thought about, but yeah, I will say that.
Oh, that one.
God,
I'm amazed that art director
this
let
poster.
I'm amazed.
Yeah.
This poster is incredible. The stock market crashing in 2008, I think, is the reference. Yeah.
There's somebody out there that pushed back against that.
Yeah, so well done.
Listen, have a great designs, having courage, man. I'll be talking about this in our recap episode, and those projects like that is an example of it. To get the creative director to sign off on it, to go and guys, just trust the vision. Just let it go. Let it go through. Let it go to press.
Yes.
Okay. With that said, overall impact. Listen, I think this book is incredibly substantial. And I already plan. I read, this is my first time reading. I first discovered this book from the book club. I'm absolutely incorporating my education and my teaching, my classes, 100%. No, not even hesitation. So at least I know for my teaching practice, it's going to have an impact. So now in terms of the larger culture, I don't know about type per se. But so that's kind of an ambiguity. I think but overall, but you know what? I'm feeling generous. It's the end of the season. I think it's a very impactful book. I think its overall impact could be very significant. Just for the very fact I read this book and went, right, I'm gonna use it in my classes. That's already a big sign right there. It's like this book and like Ellen Lupton's, in my opinion. I think those books are really good. And those are instantly like, if you're not either doing things from those books in your class or incorporating those things in your class and type, you're not doing it right, in my opinion. So I'm giving it a 5 for overall impact.
Wow. That's powerful. That's powerful. I was thinking a 5, but I was like, I'm a fanboy and I love this book, but I feel like, can overall impact be a 5 at this level? Well, for the reasons of, and I landed at a solid 4, and for the reasons being of, there's not a lot of digging into the clarity of concepts. There's not a lot of like pushing practical application, and there's not a lot of like even peeling the layers back to tell it, to talk about how these designers accomplish this work. There's a little bit, it's all very visual, punchy, and inspirational. And for those reasons, I think this book will have a lasting impression on the industry, because you're going to reference this. I think, as an educator and as a professional, you can use this as reference. But because it doesn't have any kind of like step-by-step guidance, that's where I was like, okay, I'm kind of, I have to rank it a little bit lower than a solid 5. But yeah.
All right. So I'm also going to put this one at a 4. And it's because I think, and again, this all goes back to what Thomas was saying. I feel like I'm a different person when it comes to these books now, because I feel like these books should be educational, and especially the way I'm going to be using them. I'm not doing it to be inspired as an artist, although that I will definitely use that. But I feel like they explain things like, why does this typography jump off the page? And I think that's the one thing that I try to tell people is it doesn't have to, like, type isn't static. It doesn't have to sit quietly on the page, right? And I think it encourages designers to think a little bit further, because I think that they become memorable. And I think that mind shift definitely can inspire artists. And I've seen it like in real time when I'm talking about these things of the way that, typography inspired me to be a better designer. And it also, I feel like the more I learn about typography, even at my advanced, level, I feel like there's so much more to learn. And I feel like typography is expressive. And the only thing that brought this down was, I think you said it, Thomas, it was like 2014 was maybe the last reference. I'd love to see an updated version of this book, and something that is of today that's up to these standards. So that's the only thing that brought it down. But overall, 4 out of 5 is definitely, I feel, a strong rating in my estimation.
I think the other note, for a reason why I went so strong on it, because I'm seeing it's also a history textbook too. So the reason why I think it's important is this is a very different modality of teaching history. So as opposed to great timeline of history, we're starting from prehistory, and now we're going to chuck along history, and then we're going to just jump right to basically Rome, right? Ancient Egypt. We're going to go the cave of Lascaux. Then we're going to ancient Egypt. Then we're going to go to to Greece and Rome, and then we're going to go Middle Ages a little bit, printing press, then 16th, 17th century, 18th century. Now everything explodes. Like now, all the discussion happens. Like that's the textbook narrative of graphic design teaching, aka Megs. This book does not do that. This book goes, we're not going to do that. We're going to we're going to talk about themes. That's a very different historical approach. So, in my opinion, I think this kind of book should be cards. In my opinion, like cards that you can put together and then take apart. Because I would want to do things like what themes relate to each other. So that'd be like a group activity with my students.
Whoa.
So they start seeing these meta relationships. See, that's the value of it. And then you realize, hey, what's going on with this book, this project, and these projects? And there's the temporal or geographic similarities, right? These certain designers at these times were doing this kind of work, for example, right? So you can get into the historical narrative forensic point, but you're doing it via thematic vibes point of view. It's way more approachable and way more creative, because then you just take the cards and you reposition it. So actually, not only I wouldn't even say update it. I think the format might do better in another arrangement, like more, because these are just one-pager cards effectively. They're spreads, but they're really just one asset. So I can almost imagine that artwork's on one side with a little label for the theme, like what is it, and on the back is the that more detailed explanation of it. And they're in like let's see, a wire bound cover, like the kind, the ones you can open up the wire bounds and then take the cards out. They're hole punched. You take them out.
Yeah.
Then you can rearrange it. You can take them out and use them as cards to arrange for exercises with students, or even for yourself to just see relationships and activities like that. And then you can always just put it back together and then put it back in the book format. So these are just things I think you could just, but the basic idea though of thematic history analysis for design, I think is very powerful and very innovative, because it's so not the Meg's history of graphic design, great minds of history, great march of modernism, right? And we're going to use art history just like forensic art history to justify our claims that graphic design was always here. Like that kind of stuff. So that's why, by the way, I was so enthusiastic about it. But I don't disagree with either points Matteo and Michael brought up.
Yeah. I would love to see this book as a deck of cards, especially because there's so many wonderful spreads like this one. And I'm working with a client in the car automotive industry. And when I saw this poster, I just got so excited because I was like, oh, that's such a cool approach. And then I saw the artist and I'm like, of course, it's Saul Bass in 1966 Grand Prix. I was like, that makes so much sense. Just excellent. And there's no timeline. Like the book doesn't follow a specific timeline. It's like you guys said, I think more it's showing themes. So we jump around in time, but it's modern. It's all modern, which was nice. And I feel like where Megs falls short as far as giving us a modern look at graphic design history and inspiration and what we can do as graphic designers or visual artists, that they just cram a bunch of crap at the end. This actually is like, let's explore that more. Let's open that up and let's zoom in on that. And let's show you more great work from modern times and get you those visual inspiration hits, of like what typography can do. And I love what you said earlier, Michael, about how typography is expressive and can be an expressive modality. And this book, thanks to Steven Heller and Gail Anderson, they really show us that, right? Also, product idea, make a deck of cards out of your book, Steven and Gail. I think we just gave you a fantastic new sales item.
I like it.
It's gotta be, but like big cards. So not playing cards. I'm talking like about the size of the book. Like the card be the size of a page.
Yeah.
Like we need, because scale does matter. Like we need enough scale to see the work as details. So I'm talking about like it looks like a, like what is it? A 6x9 rough size, the book.
Yeah, my friend does oversized tarot cards. Yeah, like that.
Like a birthday card like that. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, they're really amazing and very unique. And to use a World Cup example here, Italy is not in the World Cup, but there's DR Congo, there's Cape Verde, which I have no idea like about these things. And I think that one of the things that's really unique about this is maybe looking further. Like I would love to see some Indian um, uh, typography inspiration, which I have a whole book on some really great street painting signs that are amazing. So it's like I think that the historical part of this could go way deeper as far as inspiration goes, and that could be also something to look into as well.
Very good.
I like that.
All right.
Yeah, that's an expanded edition or a volume 2. If you're
There you go.
listening, if you're
Yeah.
listening, Stephen and Gail, we'd love a volume 2.
We'll only take 20%.
Nice. All right. In that case, shall we transition to our final spin wheel or the
Let's do it.
wild card?
All right.
It's
Let's
our
get
last
something
wheel
different.
spin. Our last spin of the season. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Helps us out a ton.
Are you promising?
Ooh.
Oh, that's an excellent question.
Agreed.
Would have helped. Honestly, I gotta tell you, like my typography class, I think this would have been a really great asset. My last typography class. It's not a project per se, but like I design my classes. So I consider that a project. I think that would help immensely to get my students motivated to see possibilities in type and in different ways that he can consider, especially that motive approach, as what Michael was emphasizing. I think that's really true in this book.
Michael?
Yeah, no, I can go. There's one where it actually was good, and it was I did a branding for a professional wrestling group out of Los Angeles. And one of the things about professional wrestling right now is like it's very like the word professional wrestling has a connotation with people. The cool thing about what they're doing with their events, it's actually in a bar and it's very unconventional. And you don't know what's going to be coming at you during these shows. And all I did was make really great typography for it. And it's called More Wrestling, which means it's just like, it's just more. It's more wrestling on top of what's already out there, but it's going to be more. And I think that the vagueness of that actually helped me kind of think about like, let's just make some strong letterings or strong lettering that goes on a shirt that looks cool. It's kind of skateboardish. It's kind of LA, but this could be anything. But where I think that this book might have not helped me is like in my UX work, where it has to be regimented and rigid. And so it helped me experiment in one realm, but it probably wouldn't have helped in my UX work.
That's a really good point, Michael, about UX UI, because it's so like formulaic, and it's like the book wouldn't have necessarily helped with that.
But what about moments of delight? Well, I'm not to interject, but wait a minute.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. What about moments of delight in your work?
Are you talking about in UX?
Yeah, like in UX.
Oh, in the medical field, they don't care about delight.
Delight doesn't matter. If you're in medical field, yeah, I take that back. Never mind.
It's all about accessibility.
Yeah, that's where I was like, that makes sense, Michael, because there's a lot of that like UI stuff where it's like fully accessibility. You can't have like a fun, exciting, cutting edge design in there,
right?
And then your developers are going to push you back and be like, no, we can't develop that. Yes. For me, seeing this by Herbert Bayer, there's a poster design here where he breaks it up into the grid system, and so the letters form is very clearly read in a poster system. And I was 1927, and fascinating to see this because I feel like this is also something you could see nowadays, So it's like a timeless design. I worked with Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and we created a campaign that was for LGBTQ plus pride. So I had to work with all these letter forms and then find a way to like display them in a fun, interesting way. And I feel like seeing that grid and having this entire book would have inspired me to just like think outside of the box and find more fun ways to play. And and just great visual inspiration for how to use typography and treat type as the hero throughout the journey of that project. I feel like I didn't at that time when I was making the project happen. I was just like, I was getting a lot of inspiration from going to Type Thursdays and getting feedback, and I was presenting that project for every single month. I brought the project back. I was like, Chrislam Chin was a chapter lead at the time. I was like, can I present again? I loved it so much. I got so much good feedback, and I'm working on this project, and it's, you know, due a couple months down the line. Can I present every single month? And she's like, yeah, like bring it back. We'd love to know we have a presenter every single month. Taken care of, check. And so every month I would bring it back and I would get feedback from the audience. And I just felt like that was where I was sourcing all my inspiration. But if I had that book at this time, I feel like, oh, that would have also helped, you know, just be a wonderful idea book too. But yeah,
Yep.
Love Type Thursday.
Yep.
Good times. Well, here we are. We are wrapped up our last book of the season. Next week is Type Thursday, Los Angeles. So that will be in person. But we're not done yet. We did agree that we will do a season recap. It's going to be a little different format from our usual one, since we're not reviewing any books. We're going to look back in the last 15 weeks, 15 episodes, and see our best books, the worst books, and what drama showed up during the season one. Where were their contentions? Where were their surprises? It's going to be a fun time. I'm looking forward to it. On 2 weeks from now, on July 2nd, to be our season recap of season one of the Type Thursday book club. So obviously like and subscribe so you can keep in touch. You know, if things go well, hopefully we will. Yes, like, subscribe, and comment. It helps the algos. We love our algorithm support. Absolutely. Helps everybody. So please go ahead and do that. Little Bird told me there might be 2 in the works. We'll find out in future weeks. But in the meantime, we still got one more episode, season recap in 2 weeks. Go check it out. In the meantime, Matheo, what's going on in Type Thursday, Los Angeles?
So on June 25th, which is next Thursday, we are going to be at HMCT Art Center with 3 presenters showing their awesome creative work, and you, the audience, get to give feedback. So come, get free pizza. We'll get pizza included with your ticket, drinks, refreshments, cookies from our partner, Junior Cookies, and shout out and thanks to HMCT Art Center. And it will also be the inauguration of the new chapter lead coming in, Andrea Laxanian. So thank you, Andrea. Shout out to you for being a true fan of Type Thursday Book Club. And this is a big event because we're welcoming Andrea to the helm of chapter lead of Type Thursday Los Angeles. So I'm super excited for her success and upcoming. She's been a wonderful support in our community and been helping with so many things. And now she's taking to the lead. So yeah, this is going to be a special event. Come and celebrate with us.
Very good. Very exciting. I wonder who she is. I don't know her. Oh, of course, our chat queen over here working the chat as always. Andrea's been a great part of Type Thursday. I'm very excited to have her be the next chapter lead of Type Thursday Los Angeles. And it's going to be a great time next week at Type Thursday LA. So with that said, again, don't forget to like and subscribe. Matheo, Michael, it's been a pleasure talking with you all during the season 1 book club. We'll see you all at the season 1 recap in 2 weeks. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.